Hey, how you fine folks doing? Greetings from a, at first blush, fairly unremarkable and invasive riddled coastal. I guess you could call this a hillside. We're in a nice barren habitat. There's clay pigeons and shotgun shells everywhere. This is like a wildlife management area, but they allow shooting down in here. I'm not opposed to that. However, it is worth note that Essex County, where we are in fact right now, is for some reason, despite being just a stone's throw away from Boston, and one of the more affluent regions of the state of Massachusetts, it's also one of the more conservative. Got into it recently. It's like kind of half joking with somebody that I'm like, Massachusetts, it's a weird thing because true conservatives. I'm not just talking about blue collar, whatever. If you're blue collar, fiscal conservative, old school conservative, that's your business. I'm talking about the fake new wave bro conservatives that you've seen come up in the last 10 years. These guys that grew up in the suburbs, but have somehow convinced themselves that the GOP, or however they term themselves these days, are counterculture. That they're somehow for the working class, but that's because a lot of these guys didn't grow up in working class families. They grew up very rich, in suburban. But they like to cosplay as rednecks. They like to cosplay as hillbillies. Whatever. You get the idea. My brand is not necessarily going on these rants, but I do have to point it out. Any comparisons between I and certain other vlog style people that interject some political stuff into their content are merely superficial and merely a result of our shared distaste for phonies. I grew up eating, hunting, technically eating roadkill on several occasions. Not sure if we'll keep that in there. It's all above board. Don't worry. Somebody just hit a deer in front of us that didn't want the thing to go to waste. But there's a lot of cosplaying going on in this community. So anyway, you get a lot of those guys around here. 2 minutes, 20 seconds is enough to go on about that. So anyway, lots of invasives in this habitat because it is, extensively disturbed. The two biggest offenders of that being this delightfully smelling but nefarious representative of the family of which we're actually most interested in talking about today. This is Lonicera morrowii, Morrow's honeysuckle, one of numerous Asian and Eurasian species of Lonicera, of honeysuckle, really causing a problem here in New England. And unfortunately for it, and partially the reason why it's been brought here, is that it does in fact smell intoxicating and does look quite attractive. But you can see it's forming just dense thickets, outcompetes, native honeysuckles, outcompetes many of the successional plants that you would expect to see in this type of habitat. And the other one being this guy right here, a member of the olive family. Of course, now I'm going to forget. It's autumn olive is the common name. Elaeagnus. I can't remember the species epithet, but Elaeagnus is the genus. Autumn olive, which is also similarly, and unfortunately, I don't think this one smells quite as good. It smells kind of strong, but a similarly beautiful and striking plant. Silvery leaf undersides, interesting leaf texture, beautiful flowers. Actually, I'm going to hold off on that because I can't remember if this is actually in the family Oleaceae or not. Four-petaled leaves would lead me to believe, four-petaled flowers would lead me to believe that it is, but then again, it does have alternate leaves. I could be wrong. It could be, I think, Elaeagnaceae. It might be in its own family, but the colloquial name is autumn olive. So tons of autumn olive and honeysuckle here. We do get, there's no native Elaeagnus to North America, I don't believe, definitely not to New England. And what olive family members we do get would just basically be restricted to ash trees. Some other cool members of that family down south, southeast New England, that just basically start. This one gets down into the Appalachians. I'm thinking of a specific example. I think fringe tree is one of them, but we don't get those up here. You can plant them, but we don't get them natively. And we do have tons of native honeysuckle and other members of the family Caprifoliaceae. So what we're going to do is we're going to go look at a member of the family that actually looks absolutely nothing like this. I'm going to go look at a species of Triosteum. Triosteum aurantiacum. I'm hoping to get at least 2 of the species in the region down. As I remember correctly, the vast majority of them, we'll talk about it when we go see it. But anyway, just giving you that intro, the context of the habitat here. Despite the abundance of, invasive species, you do get also plenty of the, the weedy successional native species. Juniperus virginiana, Caprifoliaceae, those berries on there just starting to mature. You do get a number of different ground cover plants that I'll get into when I'm in a little bit better of a position. Lots of juniper. Woodlands around are going to be mostly oaks. Not many pines in here. Mostly oaks, and you're getting like populus trees, like what do you call them? Aspens, cottonwoods. You're getting your hickories. This guy leafed out late. Carria. No clue what species, but definitely in the family Junglundaceae, definitely a hickory. Yeah, these guys here. You can see, I have to figure out what this is offhand, but definitely a Populus, family Salicaceae, willow family. I guess I found out recently that a lot of these actually hybrid. There's very few true species, but this could be, I want to go with Populus deltoides, eastern cottonwood, because Populus tremuloides, the quaking aspen, has much rounder leaves, and tremuloides, or sorry, not tremuloides, but yeah, God, I'm just blanking. I'm just all over the place today. Populus deltoides is the more southern trending species of that whole batch of Populus. You get your number of Prunus and different Rosaceae, different amygdaloid plants, this being Prunus pensylvanica, the fire cherry. So it has the same sort of spike of beautiful white flowers that you would expect the tree Prunus serratina to have, which is a much larger, grows as a tree, is a much larger plant, but not the same. This only grows to be, a large shrub, and different shape to the leaves. See how those leaves are somewhat accumulate there. They taper to a fine point. Prunus pensylvanica. You've got Vaccinium pallidum, the early low brush blueberry, or hillside blueberry, I've heard some people call it. And then also around the corner here, we had a relative of that guy, also in the family Ericaceae. Also, one of the dryland representatives of Ericaceae here is here, getting a lot of love for this guy this year. Let's see, where's a good little batch of flowers here. Galasatia baccata, black huckleberry. Note those ursulate corollas, same type of flower you'd expect to see on a blueberry, same type of flower you'd expect to see on a number of related ericaceous plants. So I think that's enough of an intro. We'll pause it there. We'll go see 1 or 2 of the other ground cover things. Like I said, I already found, lots of common juniper too. Juniperus communis grows flat and grows large. Juniperus virginiana, Juniperus communis. Just had a chance to see Juniperus. Yeah, there's all these shotgun shells. Just had a chance. And again, I'm not anti-gun. I'm not anti-target shooting. I do feel like there's an argument to be made that this should be picked up. They seem to just kick them off. I mean, I used to do competitive skeet shooting. I remember my grandfather used to tell me to go pick up all these things. It's cosplay. You know what I mean? For a lot of these guys, it's fucking cosplay. They don't, know what it's like to have to heat your house with wood. God knows they probably dog shit at hunting. No appreciation for the actual, ecology and fascinating things that come from learning the land, learning the woods. It's just conquest to a lot of these guys, You're supposed to be learning when you do this stuff. I'm not against hunting at all. It's actually very, very good in many cases. And you get this piece of shit too. You get it's glossy false buckthorn, Frangula ulmus. This is another pain in the ass. I'm surprised there's not more of this here. This is in the family Ranunculaceae, same family as like our native Cyanotus americanus, but obviously not native here. So anyway, I think that's enough. Nice grove. The Galasaceae baccata is really a striking plant. I just always, I don't know why, I always thought of this as more of a wetland plant. Galasaceae frondosa, The dangleberry or blue huckleberry is the one that likes a little bit more wet. But anyway, we already saw Triosteum. We're going to go look at one or two other things around the corner from here as we kind of walk around, and we'll really get into it. Again, not trying to piss off anybody with what I'm saying here, just really making a point about the fact that, you know, it's suddenly become, and by suddenly I mean slowly over the last 10 years, really cool to just become this obnoxious, douchey brand of pseudo-conservative, you know, woodsy, survivalist type thing. I think a lot of it comes from like prepper culture, and it comes from like neoconservative culture. Those two things clashing into each other, and, you know, missing the actual point of, you know, being outdoorsy, of being sporting, of getting into things like shooting, hunting, trapping, which are very legitimate skills, you know, gardening, and it turned into this weird, we're gonna, you know, somehow be anti-government, but we're gonna be gardening about it, which on paper sounds cool, but it just gets weird. Sorry if this is not what you tuned in for. Maybe this isn't the episode for you. I've been on one lately. Anyway, 11 minutes, kind of just getting the habitat and context here. Disturbed, but with plenty of interesting native plants still persisting. And yeah, let's go see a few other things. Oh, I'm sorry. Prunus pensylvanica is the fire cherry. This is Prunus virginica. So chokecherry is the common name for this. I totally forgot. So Prunus pensylvanica, which is here, doesn't have the spikes of flowers. It has them singly, and that one can grow a little bit more tree-like. This is you know, Prunus virginica. My mistake. Again, a lot of these Prunus species, Prunus, Amelanchier, you know, they can start Prunus, Amelanchier, even some like the Malus, some of the apples. They all start looking really, really similar once you get into them. Oh yeah, this is an interesting time of year to be out, and I've traversed a lot of New England in the last couple of weeks. It's interesting to see the different stages of phenology. Phenology, of course, just being a word describing the general study and appreciation of the timing of life events. But here you go, Geranium maculatum, one of our nice, almost borderline weedy, very common wildflowers that you see come up anywhere. One that could and should be planted excuse me, in just about every, you know, garden in New England. Plenty of them still in bud. I've always wanted to try growing this. It's so accessible. I always forget to just nab seeds off it when they're ready, because, you know, again, it's a weedy plant. Those seeds come loose and, you know, readily disperse by themselves. Little crane's bill seeds that can hook onto you and get tagged along pretty much anywhere. But still, a nice plant to have around. Geraniaceae is a family. A few other ones in there: Geranium carolinianum, Geranium becnellii, Geranium robertium. Some of them weedy, some of them rare, but you know, they're geraniums. You also get last year's growth from Spirea alba, a plant that for some reason I always thought was a forb and had never really paid attention to. It's a shrub, stays woody, doesn't get too big, but definitely stays woody. And then, if I'm not mistaken, what we've got here, I'll give it a whiff, are some emerging hay-scented ferns. I could be very mistaken on that. Certainly a common species and one that likes this type of habitat. I was up in a blueberry barren in Vermont, which is common where we're standing now, but, you know, exceedingly rare in Vermont. And this was what was coming up in all of the burned areas, along with, like, you know, resprouting blueberry. So just another couple little things here. Yeah, here's one I used to talk about all the time. Then it kind of lost some of its appeal, but I realized it's quite an odd flower, quite an odd plant, and you know, I should talk about it. I see it quite often. It's been a while. Let's take just a second to appreciate Polygonatum pubescens, technically assigned to the family Asparagaceae in the subfamily Nolanoideae, formerly in the family Rosaceae. Now, Rosaceae, as it was formerly circumscribed, was a fascinating family in the Northeast that also would include, you know, in addition to Polygonatum, the Solomon seals would also include your false Solomon seals or mayflowers, Maianthemum. Now, if you're a houseplant person and you're just tuning in, you're a casual, have you ever heard of a snake plant? A Dracaena, or formerly known as Sansevieria in some cases. You know, Dracaena snake plants, dragon blood tree. Yeah, that's this guy's cousins, okay? Now, that's not the smallest family in the world. And it's always been known to be closely related to the asparagus family, Asparagaceae, but a lot of people have been opposed to how they, how they re-circumscribed, how they reworked that family, and what those definitions now are. So this guy is real interesting. There's a rose thorn on my leg. Emerges from the ground. It's technically an ephemeral, but it's late blooming for an ephemeral. Comes out just this one stalk with the leaves coming out. No petiole on those, and then the flowers. Oh, this guy might be one of the garden hybrids. This guy looks different than the other one I just saw. Yeah, this is, hang on a second, what's going on here? So that one has like multiple flowers. I guess they can do that. I'll have to double check. I'm pretty sure it's a polygonatum either way, but some of the garden varieties get a little bit showier than what the native ones look like. Usually they have one flower per peduncle there, but whatever. Then you see those are the flowers underneath there. Really weird. I'm not sure how I would describe that. 6 tepals. How many stamens? I never actually paid attention to how many stamens they have in there. Parts of 6. So multiples of 3 like you would expect from a monocot, but just really weird looking flowers. And sure enough, if you're ever fortunate enough to get your Dracaena to flower, they're going to look a lot like that. I think this might not be Polygonatum pubescens, although it does have ever so slightly. Oh yeah, there's the downy hairs. Maybe it is. Maybe I'm just mistaken. So this guy likes it. Rocky habitats like we're in right now. It'll come up on like the edge of like a boulder, like this thin soil, or even like up on top of a rock, like in the woods if the soil, if it's like a richer habitat. Seems to prefer shade, but can also grow, kind of exposed like they are here. I'll get back to you on that. I'll see if that's one of the weird garden hybrids, because Polygonatum, some of the non-native species and some of the hybrids were formerly, and still are in some cases, really popular garden ornamentals. So there's nothing wrong with just planting the actual, Polygonatum pubescens, the actual type species that's common. It's still a good addition to your garden. Yeah, I've grown really fond of these guys this year. Thalictrum, thalictroides. You should get this in your garden, It's an ephemeral, and it's a thalictrum, and it looks like it would, be like a nice damp-loving mesic, plant of rich woodlands. Actually really does like the kind of dry slopes. Grows in some really fascinating habitats. I've seen it like Mount Toby area on some of those mountainsides. Really nice plant. Got attractive foliage. Very attractive flowers, blooms prolifically. I had this, again, in my garden. This was here in full bloom last week. I've had it in my garden, started weeks ago, and still growing strong. Spreads out like a nice ground cover. And, like I said, seems to, like it dry, but also doesn't really seem to be too finicky when things get a little bit damp either. A true class act. Thalictrum, thalictroides. Also worth briefly mentioning here, a plant that you'll often see in thin acidic habitats, but then also, in bogs, which are rich but with unavailable nitrogen, just generally favoring acidic and difficult to grow in conditions. You've got a Betula, populifolia. So this is a gray birch. So it has gray bark, kind of almost looks like it could sheathe, but doesn't generally. Small trees, very ruderal. Pioneer plants, but they like it. They can take it wetter and drier. They can hack it in a little bit more difficult conditions than their close cousin Betula papyrifera, which is also a ruderal plant. But that one tends to like a little bit more mesic. And of course, this type of habitat would never be complete without Comptonia peregrina, fixing nitrogen in the soil and generally tolerating what few other plants will. Morrowaceae is a family there. And again, seeing these two together and like a roadside, a nice acidic habit, maybe not too far from Pinus strobus, a white pine, very typical of like your roadside disturbed habitats, but then also typical of some of the more interesting, just generally like acidic and barren habitats we get around the region. A plant that can do both, Looks like some of these are either just leafing out or there was some dieback. We got a nor'easter coming in this week. So probably going to see some snow up at high elevation, even though it's the middle of May. But that's, I guess, fine. More of that geranium. Some birds flying around, coming down to a little wet area here. Anything interesting down there? I'm not seeing anything. Tons of invasive, but at least they're somewhat charismatic invasives, like this spurge, this euphorbia. I'm not even going to try to guess the species on here. Could if I burn them down there? It's not blooming yet. You know, it's pretty dry. I'm surprised that this creek isn't running because of all the rain we've gotten recently. But hey, I mean, whatever. All right, anyway, I think that we could turn around. What I was hoping was that I was going to keep going down this way, which I didn't come all the way down when I was here last time. We were going to keep coming down this way. We were going to perhaps run into our target plant and bloom, but that does not seem like it's going to be what's happening. It's another cool, at least interesting non-native plant. Silene floss cucullii, a ragged robin in the family Caprifoliaceae. Beautiful plant, don't get me wrong, but still, at the end of the day, just another obnoxious invasive. I don't think it's still in the genus Silene, but that's how I know it, and that's what I'm going to keep it as. All right, we're going to cut it here, turn around, get our target species. I'll put a thing at the beginning of the video, which you already would have seen. I don't know why I'm saying this, probably just to remind myself that if you're really only interested in, you know, the Triosteum, yeah, nice. Geranium can compete. You got to plant these ruderal, weedy natives if you want them to compete at all with the onslaught of invasives. If you just let your yard go to crap like you do that. Oh, hang on, we get something interesting here. I'll finish my thought though. If you just let your lawn go to crap, you do that no mow May thing, it doesn't really work, especially not around here. You're going to get nothing but an onslaught of invasives, and you may be doing more harm than good. Plant the weedy native stuff and then carefully manage it. At least 2 to 3, probably more. It's a lifetime endeavor. It's well worth it, and it gets easier every year, I swear. If you let your yard just go no mow and you just let the whole thing just go wild, you're not going to get, you know, the succession of species that you want desirable. You're going to have to bring in the early colonizing, you know, weedy, quote unquote, weedy natives, and then they are going to be able to be some of the few things that can compete with the, you know, vicious catalog of invasives that will move in first, and that will be far more aggressive and far harder to remove than a lawn is. You go section by section, or you know, slowly introduce, you know, not slowly, you can rapidly introduce native plants, but it's not something you just solve just by stopping maintenance of lawn. You still have to maintain these things. Anyway, what caught my eye was this cool dude right here. Just getting started for the year. I was wondering when I was going to see this guy, Aphelon uniflora, completely achlorophyllous parasitic plant in the family Aurantiacum. He's just getting started. So this guy usually parasitizes sedums, asters, I believe some grasses, but asters are typically, it likes to parasitize goldenrod from what I've heard, which, I mean, we've got asters growing here, just of various different types. But yeah, achlorophyllous. He does not produce chlorophyll, and he's completely parasitic. In that family, Aurantiacum is nothing but parasitic plants. So a lot of these ruderal species can hack it because they're super weedy, they grow quick, blah, blah, blah. That's their lifestyle. This guy's gimmick down here is that he's able to distill nutrients from all the shit growing around him. Okay, I think that's enough. I think we can cut it off there for now. Now we can go look at that Triosteum. Cool find, though. I was wondering when I was going to start seeing those for the year. They do like this sort of, you know, they can grow in some pretty ruderal, which just means just fancy word for disturbed habitats. We'll cut it off here. This might be a long rambling one. Yeah, see, here's Maianthemum canadense, whatever they call. People keep correcting me. They keep saying canadense. They haven't done that until this year, so whatever. Canadense, whatever you like. This is also in that Nolanoides subfamily of Asparagaceae. So this is a pretty close relative of a polygonadum pubescens, although with a different, you know, different floral anatomy. Different genus, you know, kind of makes sense. Oh, hey, that's nice. I don't think I've actually seen this before. Viburnum, if I'm not mistaken, Viburnum lentago. It's nice. One of the native viburnums. It's either that or it's Viburnum cassinoides, but I think it's Viburnum lentago, just based on the habitat. And I guess those winged petioles there are one of the giveaway factors. Viburnaceae, formerly Doxaceae, parts of 5. This one, unlike, you know, Viburnum lantanoides, doesn't have those false flowers that kind of make it look like a, what do you call it there? A hydrangea. So, viburnums, generally speaking, you know, when that new growth pushes out, so that's that unit there. Let's call that a unit, for lack of a better term. These are, I believe, yeah, still opposite-leaved. Yeah, they don't have the weird stipules that I believe Viburnum cassinoides has. That could just be based on the time of year that I'm seeing this, but whatever. Yeah, here's another different Populus species. I believe this one is either, oh, it's the silver one. It's the invasive one, I think. I'll take a picture. I'll figure it out. I thought it was Grandis dentata for a second. You know, again, they keep telling me they're all hybridized and you can't really assign them to a type species or not. But yeah, or it's, you know, white poplar. It's the common name for it. We'll figure it out. I owe this guy here. I owe this guy here an apology. This is Populus grandidentata. This is big tooth aspen, or Easter, whatever. It's deltoides is cottonwood aspen. You know, common names are stupid anyway. I thought it was a white poplar because of the fuzzy undersides. White poplar has actually a pretty different leaf shape to it, and grandidentata is expected to have the fuzzy undersides. So native member, family Salicaceae, if I didn't say that already. And then there's this guy over here, which is a couple of them, which is an oak. But look at that bark in there. That's odd. And the leaves, kind of, you know, white oak group, obviously. But then you really look at those leaves, and it resembles, the undersides, they're fuzzy. It resembles Quercus bicolor, but the habitat here would be completely wrong for Quercus bicolor. This is like dry and sandy. Quercus bicolor, which is swamp white oak, generally likes it mesic, which, I mean, there's some wet areas running through here, but this is not one of them. So we'll maybe do a little bit of investigation. Oaks hybridize, so maybe it's just an unusual specimen of a Quercus, but, you know, awaiting further review. We'll see what comes up with this one. Now this is actually unusual. Coming up with all the poison ivy here. Yeah, I'm sorry, this gave me a very long video. I am in fact putting a disclaimer at the beginning. If you don't want to watch the whole thing, you just care about Triosteum, just skip to that. Yeah, coming up with all this poison ivy. I believe that this is Zizia aria. This is golden Alexander's, which would lead me to believe that the soil lying beyond in this little depression here is a considerably more rich, or perhaps even slightly calcareous, compared to you know, everything else you've got going on around it. You know, Zizia aria, not an uncommon species to see out in the western part of the state, where the, you know, forests are, you know, lush, the soil is a bit less acidic, but not something I would expect to see when every single other co-occurring species is something that typically occurs on acidic soil and dry, you know, barren sites. But yeah, sure enough, definitely a member of Apiaceae. I could be mistaken, and also this could be like a garden escape. I don't think it's restricted to those habitats, but I mean, let me put it to you this way. You go west of the Connecticut, or you get on the Connecticut, and then areas west, areas up along the Connecticut River, certainly up in Vermont, you start seeing this thing growing everywhere. It's like a common roadside plant. Seeing it here is somewhat unusual, but again, this is something people do actually plant in their gardens. If it is in fact the species of Zizia that I'm thinking it is, I think that there's a European species too, probably even more widely planted as a garden species, but we'll double back on this. Yeah, okay, I gotta do the longer format videos sometimes, even if it's common stuff that, you know, so not everybody watches every single video. It's good to repeat myself every once in a while, so long as it's not every, you know, whatever episodes. A lot of those species I haven't talked about since the earliest days of the channel. Anyway, this, you know, rather benign looking plant here is actually our target species. Not quite in bloom yet, but hang on a second here. You know what? This is just, what is this? This is all just that autumn olive. I'll just, oh, who cares? It's autumn olive. You know what? In fact, I'm probably doing the target plant a favor by removing this. Fucking Elaeagnus, man. This is, again, it is a beautiful plant. That's how it got here in the first place, but there we go. Now we freed up some room to talk about our actual, you know, target species. None of these are fully in flower, but you know, we can come back. We can get it, you know, give it a week or so. Those are actually right there, where the flowers will be emerging from. This is Triosteum aurantiacum, okay? This is the orange-fruited Horse-Gentian. No relation to gentians. Oh, it's so fuzzy, covered in glands. Smell like anything? It just kind of smells vegetal. No relation to gentians, but it is in the family Caprifoliaceae, which we were talking about earlier. So it's got this cool opposite-leaved construction to it. Thing's going to put out really fascinating flowers that I will do my best to come back and get some shots of the anatomy there. So, you know, in my mind, what this more closely resembles, it's not the honeysuckles, but another, you know, member of the family, Caprifoliaceae valerian, is what this more closely resembles, excuse me, in my mind's eye. So these are not particularly rare in the state or in New England. In fact, this is by far the most common species of Triosteum one could expect to see in New England, if not the East in general. You also have Triosteum perfoliatum, which is the perfoliate-leaved Horse-Gentian, which I'm hoping to go see that one in Connecticut. It's also on the Cape, albeit in an area that is, you know, restricted from public access. And then there's Triosteum angustifolium, the small-leaved Horse-Gentian, which I, despite finding no evidence to state this outright, believe might likely be extirpated from New England in general. So we might come back and visit this guy a couple more times, because the fruits are actually what most people find most attractive. The flowers are interesting when they do come out. Kind of weird how it has these little dark colored bracts that subtend what will be the emerging flower. You can see them in there. Little flower bud just needs a little bit longer, so we can get this guy at 3 different life stages. There's another patch right there. There's a few more scattered around the roadside. You really don't have to come down far to see them. But a sporadic but widespread distribution around the eastern U.S. Triosteums are mostly, I think there's 6 species. I want to say there's 3 or 4 in the U.S. and then 2 or 3, depending on how they're split up in Asia, or maybe 5 in the U.S., 1 in Asia. I'll put the correct number there. So not too many species of these, in just a weird kind of distribution. I don't think they're terribly hard to grow. You can punch it into iNat and see what appear to be like cultivated examples of it. I mean, I type it in, and I guess it's got the medicinal thing going on. I wouldn't know anything about that. Don't pester me for information about that sort of thing. But I really would like to come back and show you the flowers, because they are fascinating. And you know, valerian's not a native plant, but I think this is like the thing that most closely resembles it. So I do believe they are all opposite-leaved. Perfoliate-leaved is obviously going to have perfoliate leaves. They're easy to tell apart even when they're not in flower, because again, the flowers are very ephemeral and they're actually not that showy. They just poke out of the stem. But the thing, when you really sit down and you think about it, has a bizarre, you know, construction to it. They are, you know, beautiful plants, like even when green, but when those fruits come out is when people are really taking notice of them. Brightly colored, rather large and apparent fruits coming up out the side. The little, you know, almost like a stipule or something, you know, like a little accessory to the petiole. So I mean, that construction almost reminds me of like a eupatorium. But yeah, again, Caprifoliaceae, entire thing. I mean, it's a soft, very pleasant plant to handle. You know, soft on both sides. Just, you know, I just wonder, you know, why they're so sporadic. If they could come up in a habitat like this, and they're not like, you know, like, oh, they need it really pristine. Maybe just like encroachment is the issue. But then again, why don't you see them in every open field? Maybe the Zizia aurea behind us, if that is in fact Zizia aurea, awaiting further circumscription. There's also a cool moringia over there, but I got to get going, so I'm not going to worry about that. That's a common enough plant. You get that all over the world. It's native here, but it's also native to Eurasia and I think North Africa. I digress. You know, we'll talk more about this plant, but we got the taxonomy and the basic structure of the thing out of the way. Habitat type, you know, likes these, apparently will come up in a field or a forest edge and just set up shop in small little bunches. So I don't know why this is something I had to go out of my way to look for, but here it is. 2 nice clumps here, and then, you know, some sporadic ones as I was kind of going up the road there. You know, and we'll come back. We'll give it another week. I was already here, and it wasn't in bloom. Now it's a little bit further along, but like I said, the weather has been cold, then rainy, and then hot and dry. It's been stressing everything out, including myself. But yeah, so we'll hope that, you know, this guy doesn't get like choked out by this Elaeagnus in the near future. That'll continue to grow, to be successful in and amongst the groves of invasives. So long video. Sorry, got a little ranty there at the beginning, but you know, sometimes you gotta just, you gotta just speak your mind. You know, I'm not trying to piss anybody off. You know, you know, you do you. Just leave. I like to leave other people alone. I like to believe in the good-natured intention of minding one's own business. So anyway, we're gonna cut it off there. Triosteum perfoliatum. You can hopefully have skipped. God, this is gonna be a long video, but hopefully have skipped, you know, whatever you didn't want. Those are a ton of really common, really ruderal plants. Talked about some of the nasty invasives we get here. Hopefully, you know, you get an idea. Those ruderal, you know, weedy native plants are still very important, if not some of the most important plants to take notice of, because those are the things that you want to plant first if you're going to start, you know, converting, you know, your property back over to natives. They are pioneer species. They are the only things you can't be planting, like these rare sensitive things. Like you can't be planting like, you know, your nice, my rare, I'm trying to just think of an example of like something that people plant that's actually, you know, like an unusual plant. You know, I can't really think of anything because I don't want to give people ideas, because some people are planting like S1, S2 species, which, you know, screw up conservation efforts. It's very complicated and nuanced, okay? Anyway, that is there's way more than enough for today. Triosteum, aurantiacum, orange-fruited Horse-Gentian. We'll check back in with him when he's flowering, and then maybe even later in the summer when he's fruiting, because I do want to try to grow this. So this is like not a rare. It's so weird because it's so sporadic. I did see this in Vermont. It's not in the video, but I did see this in Vermont growing in like a rocky, barren like outcrop in the southern part of the state, which makes sense. It wasn't super high elevation, and it was also, you know, south. Like actually like along this line of latitude, maybe only like 500 or 600 feet higher. So that actually does check out. Oh God, I just thought I deleted this video on accident somehow, but whatever, you know, that's enough for now. I saw this, I'm going to try to see one of its relatives. I don't think I'm going to be able to see Angustifolium. If it's either extirpated, and even if it's not, it's probably on private property. Perfoliatum, we have a decent chance of seeing as a massive population down on Cape Cod, but you can't access it without permission, and it's supposed to be a bit more abundant in Connecticut. So I'm hoping to go try to check that out this weekend, or this weekend. In any case, we'll give him another week, and we'll see if he's flowering when I come back. Anyway, take it easy for now, and jump cut to the next thing if you happen to see it.